Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavalabha Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Nandana Braja Jana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Vadirayet Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayam Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Continuing reading from the third canto, chapter 28, text number 40 and 41. So we've got 41 up there, so I'll just quickly chant 40, huh? Yato mukhad vinushvagad damadvapi swasvambhavat
Apya Atma Vinam Viktat Yagnagni Pratayak Utmukat. Okay, text 41. Bhutendriyanta Karanat Bhutendriyanta Karanat Pradhajna Jiva Samnitat Prajna Jiva Samnitat Atmatata Pragagrista Atmatata Pragagrista Bhagavan Brahma Sagnitai Bhutendriyantai Karanat Pradhajna Jiva Sagnitat Atmatata Prinagrista Atmatata Prinagrista Bhagavan Brahma Sagnitai Bhutendriyanta Karanat Pradhajnaj Jiva Samnitat Prajnaj Jiva Atmatata Pranagrishta Atmatata Pranagrishta Bhagavan Brahma Sagnitai Bhagavan Brahma Sagnitai Bhutendrinaya Taganat Pranagnaj Jiva Sagnitat Atmatata Prinagrishta Bhagavan Brahma Sagnitai Bhutendrinantai Karnat Pradagnaj Jiva Sagnitat Atmatata Pranajgrishta Bhagavan Brahma Sagnitai Bhutendrinata Karanat Pragnaj Jiva Sagnitat Atmatata Pradagrista Bhagavan Brahma Sagnitai Bhuta, the five elements, Indriya, the senses, Antakaranat, from the mind, Pradhanat, from the Pradhana, Jiva Sangnitat, from the Jiva soul, Atma, the Paramatma, Tata, so, Prithak, different, Drista, the seer, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Brahma Sagnitai, called Brahman. Translation purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Para-Brahman, is the seer. He is different from the Jiva soul or individual living entity who is combined with the senses, the five elements and consciousness. So I'll just go back and read text 40 because we missed that one yesterday. The blazing fire is different from the flames, from the sparks and from the smoke, although all are intimately connected because they are born from the same wood. Purport. Although the blazing firewood, the sparks, the smoke and the flame cannot stay apart, because each of them are part and parcel of the fire, still they are different from one another. A less intelligent person accepts the smoke as fire, although fire and smoke are completely different. The heat and light of the fire are separate, although one cannot differentiate from fire, heat. I'll read that again. The heat and the light of the fire are separate, although one cannot differentiate fire from heat and light. Okay, today's verse. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as the Para-Brahman, is the seer. He is different from the Jiva soul or individual living entity who is combined with the senses, the five elements, and consciousness. Purport. A clear conception of the complete whole is given herewith. The living entity is different from the material elements, and the supreme living entity, the personality of Godhead, who is the creator of the material elements, is also different from the individual living entity. This philosophy is propounded by Lord Chaitanya as a Chintya Beda Beda Tattva. Everything is simultaneously one with and different from everything else. The cosmic manifestation created by the Supreme Lord, by his material energy, is also simultaneously different and non-different from him. The material energy is non-different from the Supreme Lord, but at the same time, because that energy is acting in a different way, it is different from him. Similarly, the individual living entity is one with and different from the Supreme Lord. This simultaneous one and different philosophy is the perfect conclusion of the Bhagavat school, as confirmed here by Kapili Dev. Living entities are compared to the sparks of a fire. As stated in the previous verse, fire, flame, smoke, and firewood are combined together. Here the living entity, the material elements, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are combined together. The exact position of the living entity is just like that of the spark of a fire. They are part and parcel. The material energy is compared to the smoke. The fire is also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. In the Vishnu Purana it is said that whatever we can see or experience, either in the material or spiritual world, is an expansion of the different energies of the Supreme Lord. As fire distributes its light and heat from one place, the Supreme Personality of Godhead distributes his different energies all over his creation. The four principles of the Vaishnava philosophic doctrine are Suddha Dvaita, purified oneness, Dvaita Advaita, simultaneous oneness and difference, Visista Advaita and Dvaita. All four principles of Vaishnava philosophy are based on the thesis of Srimad Bhagavatam explained in these two verses. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chakshu Om Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but by the mercy of my spiritual master, he is kindly forcing open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Namo Om Vishnu Pada Krishna Prista Bodhale Srimati Tamal Krishna Goswami Iti Namane. This Srimad Bhagavatam is as brilliant as the sun, and it is arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna. So we are so fortunate that the sun has risen and that has been given to us in very unexplained situations. How we come across the Srimad Bhagavatam, we cannot even decipher that, but we can put it down to being great mercy. Great mercy that we are receiving this knowledge, which Prabhupada would always be saying, the absolute truth, without a doubt. Boom, like that. You know, there is no thesis or theory or maybes like that. This is as it is, Prabhupada would say. You know, so we're receiving the absolute truth as it is. If we have got the right ears, if we're listening in the right way, and we have this this shraddha, this faith. If we have the faith that what we are hearing is the absolute truth, that the Lord is seated within us, He is within and without. You know, we hear all these statements coming from Bhagavad Gita and from Srimad Bhagavatam, how the Lord is everywhere, He is the universe, He is separate from His energies like this. So it can be quite bewildering for the new person when he comes along. He is hearing these simultaneously one and different. So how do you explain that? Simultaneously one and different. So it can really quite twist your mind quite a bit, and you're thinking, these guys are nuts. You know, they're talking about this and that, and it is this and it isn't that, and we are this and we aren't that. So you can become bewildered by the whole philosophy when it is presented. So that's why it's encouraged that we have to approach a bona fide spiritual master in a submissive mood, and even approach the Srimad Bhagavatam in a very submissive mood and pray, please give me the understanding so that I can understand what is trying to be said here. Because there's so much information. There was a gentleman here a few weeks ago and he was standing out at the book table, and he was wondering which book to get. And he was, I could see he's actually a minister, so he's studied the Bible and all those sort of things, but now he's approaching the Vedic literature. And he said how he was so bewildered by there is such a vast amount of all these names and all this, and you could see he was like swimming in the ocean, but he was completely lost. He didn't know what was up and what was down, and he couldn't figure it out. So what to do for a person like that? You know, they have to be willing to, I guess, hear in a submissive way. This personality who I'm speaking of, he was a little bit, he liked to present his own philosophy. So he was a little bit lost, you know. What can you do for somebody that thinks they know it all? You know, you can't. Sometimes I could have sat down with him for an hour and tried to explain it to him, but still he would have come up with his, but I think this, or, you know, and then you're thinking, oh, what am I doing? You know, so therefore we understand that it is through this process of devotional service, through the beginning with hearing, and then, you know, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Vanchanam, Dasyam, Sakmanam, Manivedanam. So we approach this through the hearing process. We are hearing, you know, these wonderful things, and if we approach it in the right mood with this faith, and then we apply ourselves to the process. So this is a yoga process that we are hearing of, which is that of detachment and knowledge. You know, Krishna is saying in the Gita that we have to become detached but armed with a sort of knowledge. So the senses and the mind, we are hearing about how the senses and the mind need to be controlled. You know, we hear that, we see the picture of the chariot and the horses are there. So we've got to control the chariot and the horses to some degree. We can't just throw away the reins and take our hands and think everything's going to go on automatically. No, we've got to apply ourselves to the process, which means, you know, here, like breath restraint, mind control, and in this way we can like contemplate what we have been hearing, you know, about how we are different from this body as fire is different from smoke. So, and how we are different from these bodies. So when we become more introspective, more serious in following the regulative principles and chanting Hare Krishna, then the Lord is stepping in and He's assisting us to understand all this vast knowledge that we have of the universe, and the universes beyond the universes, and then beyond the universes there is the, you know, the Brahman, and then beyond the Brahmana there are Vaikuntha planets, and then going into the Vaikuntha planets there are so many Vaikuntha planets, but the topmost being Goloka. So this is our faith. We have accepted that this is what we want to accept as the absolute truth, and in this way we can actually become very, very satisfied. We are no longer hankering and lamenting because we've had a deep understanding of this material body and its destination, to be eaten by worms or burnt by fire. That is the destination of this body. So don't become overly attached to the body. And those things, we were just hearing of the wife and the wealth, you know, the family members and the bank balance. Don't become too attached to the bank balance, because all these things will hold us back from really letting go, because we really want to let go of all these illusions, because it is an illusion. Here I am in a body, you know, thinking I am the self. So this ahankara is the most difficult of all to overcome. But we shouldn't become, despondent because of the ahankara, because we are still identifying with our bodies. Hare Kijai, please protect us. Here we are under the little mountain. So we are batting on Radha Guru. But anyhow, getting back, we shouldn't become despondent because we are constantly identifying with this body. It's not such, we shouldn't worry about that so much. We should just be very grateful that we've been given a path of self-realization. We've been given this process of chanting Hare Krishna. We've been given some understanding that the Lord is always with us. This is a very comforting thing for the yogis and for the bogies like myself, that the Lord is always with us. He will never leave. He is our dearmost friend. He is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is our dearmost friend. So if we take that to heart, we can become very satisfied knowing that Krishna knows what is best for me. He knows what I need. He knows, you know, my predicaments. He knows my desires. He knows everything. So if we have this understanding that Krishna is the knower of everything and the cause of all causes, then we can become a little bit pacified, just knowing by simply calling out his names, simply calling out to the Lord. That is all we can do. That's all we're really qualified to do, is really just call out. Like a man drowning in an ocean, basically. That's our predicament. You can imagine being out in the ocean now. There'll be huge waves, like the size of the building. We're in a very precarious situation. But the solution is just simply to call out the names of the Lord. And then we are saying to do that with faith. And we hear of the story of Ajamil, who was just calling out the names of his son, and still he was able to receive great, great mercy. So what to speak of those that are able to call out with faith and determination, and we're chanting our japa, calling out for assistance to the Lord. Our position is wonderful, I guess you could say, or very exalted to some degree, or very fortunate. So we are in a very fortunate position to be able to come, hear this knowledge, contemplate what is being said, this simultaneous oneness and difference, and all these other aspects that are being presented by Lord Chaitanya. We are so fortunate that Lord Chaitanya has come, he has left his teachings, he's left us the Shikshastakam prayers, which are very, very deep within themselves. Even just studying those prayers can bring one to full realization of the absolute truth. So we have got so much here. So we all have to do is just take it. Just take the medicine. Take the drops or whatever it is. And in this way, we will be cleansing our hearts. And when our hearts become cleansed, then the mirror becomes clear. And then we can see things very nicely. So we just got to be patient. There is, we could say there's a lot of dust on the mirror of our mind. But previously in this verse, I can't remember which verse it was saying the lotus feet of the Lord are like a thunderbolt. And that thunderbolt is there to destroy the mountain of sins. So this is, putting it into perspective. We might think we've got a little bit of dust on our mind, but actually it can be compared to a mountain. And it's taking the lotus feet of the Lord's feet, which are like a thunderbolt, to destroy that mountain. So this is really our situation. We've got a mountain of sin, and we are buried underneath that mountain of sin. But by calling out the Lord's holy name and rendering devotional service, then he can come along and destroy that mountain of sin. He is the only one that can do it. We cannot do that. We have no power within ourselves to destroy our past activities. We created those past activities. We were the creator of this big mountain of sin. So we have to be responsible for that. So we can call out for assistance. Again, just call out the holy names of the Lord. He will come along with his thunderbolt. He will destroy that mountain of sin and enable us to become qualified to go back to God at the end of this life, or enter into his pastimes at the end of this life. We can take another birth in this material realm where the Lord is enacting his pastimes, and we'll have the great fortune, hopefully, to hear his flute, to hear Krishna's flute, where it melts the stones. The stones melt when they hear Krishna's flute. So hopefully we would get that good fortune to one day just be a speck of dust. This is what Lord Brahma is praying to be, a blade of grass. Same with Uddhava. He was also praying to be just a speck of dust so that he can be present where the Lord is enacting his pastimes. So the pastimes of the Lord are such wonderful exchanges of love. And this is the most satisfying thing, to be able to remember these activities of the Lord and absorb ourselves in these loving exchanges, because this is really what we are hankering after, to have this opportunity to see the most beautiful thing within all of creation, to see Radha and Krishna. This is what we're aspiring for. The most satisfying thing for the eyes is to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then the most wonderful thing for the ears is to hear the flute. So we're seeing, we're hearing, and then all our other senses can also be enlivened. We can smell the fragrance of those flowers, because the gopis, I was reading just yesterday or the day before, the gopis are trained in the 64 arts, and some of those arts are just amazing, to be able to be so expert at preparing a bed of flowers, Now, we've got no conception of how to prepare a bed of flowers, but the gopis probably do these amazing designs or whatever it is, to prepare these beds of flowers. Such an amazing thing, isn't it? So sweet and such an amazing possibility to be able to even contemplate that the gopis are there within the forest of Vrindavan preparing beds of flowers for Radha and Krishna. It's just like, we're not even really qualified to be able to contemplate these things. But, if we're sober and detached and we go within and we pray to the Lord, then He can give us a glimpse of what it means to prepare a bed of flowers for the Lord. Such a wonderful opportunity we have, as long as we are able to, with this sword of knowledge, cut down the lust, the greed, the anger, these other gates that are leading to hell. They're going the other way. So we've got to turn the boat around and sail it towards the Lord. And then when we do that, we'll be able to enter into these most wonderful activities that go on. And it's an unlimited thing as well. That's the other thing about it. It's not just the bed of flowers. There's so many other things. One was playing stringed instruments in water. So you can imagine they could be in Radha Kund, playing their venas or whatever they're doing. Again, it's just another inconceivable thing, but if we're able to stop and put all our other thoughts and desires aside and just ponder for a minute, becoming expert at playing stringed instruments in water, and then how that could enact, assisting, Radha and Krishna when they meet at Radha Kund in the middle of the day or whatever time of the day they are meeting there. The gopis are there playing, and the whole thing just makes one basically become stunned. You become stunned at the beauty, of the gopis, how they're dressed, all the gold ornaments of Radharani, of Krishna, the fragrances that are there in the breezes, and just the sounds and what is going on, how they're just making such a wonderful arrangement for the meeting of Radha and Krishna. So this is really what our meditations should be trying to progress towards. As we become more and more detached from the material world, we replace that with these wonderful meditations of what is actually going on in the spiritual realm. So it takes a lot of practice and a lot of time, and may take us many lifetimes but if we are able to come and give this oral reception to the Srimad Bhagavatam and hear about these activities and these pastimes, then we can become very easily disgusted with our predicament of being stuck in a bag of blood and stool and urine. This is where we're in these bodies and the mind is trying to enjoy. We have got to realise that it's a futile attempt to try and be happy, because death is coming, so much misery is coming. Give it up now, and Lord Chaitanya will be, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and like this, Jeev Jago, just wake up, sleeping soul. You've been sleeping in the lap of the witch Maya for so long. Wake up to the real reality and simply call out the names of Radha and Krishna. Simply by calling out these names of Radha and Krishna, everything is taken care of. So it's so easy for us in this age of Kali, but we are so unlucky, misguided, and above all, always disturbed. The mind is always, oh my God, this problem, that problem. So this is our predicament. We are, given such sweet things, but still we can't take them. It's like, what is it, casting pearls to the swines? We are being given such a great gift, but still we're just sniffing around in the stool. So come and hear Srimad Bhagavatam, read Krishna book, and expose yourself more and more to this. But it's like putting the iron rod in the fire. Then you pull it out, and that iron rod has the qualities of fire. So similarly for us, if we just keep associating and exposing ourselves to this transcendental knowledge and the wonderful aspects of it, then we will become affected by these things and actually transformed within. We can transform within, and it can even get to the point where we can start to see these pastimes. So this is what we're aspiring to do, is become more and more detached from this bag of stool, which we call the body, which we think is so wonderful. Just because of this thin layer of skin, we think it's a very wonderful thing. But just under the skin, there's so many nasty things. So we have to constantly remind ourselves of the situation, and then become convinced that the best thing to do is to meditate and to chant. And in this way, become detached from all this nonsense that's going on around us, and then preach it. The best way of getting realization is by preaching. So going out on Harinam and loudly chanting the holy names, giving it out to everybody, freely distributing this love of God. Even though we may not have it ourselves, we will become an instrument. We'll go out there and we'll distribute it, and this is the most pleasing thing to the Lord. And by doing this, by preaching this Krishna consciousness in whatever shape or form we can, then we become a eligible candidate to enter into the pastimes, which is really our goal, is to enter into these pastimes of the Lord. Okay, we've hit 8 o'clock. I'll just read the translations again. The blazing fire is different from the flames, from the sparks and from the smoke, although all are intimately connected because they are born of the same blazing wood. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as the Parabrahma, is the seer. He is different from the Jiva soul, or individual living entity, who is combined with the senses, the 5 elements, and consciousness. Any questions, comments? We're all convinced. This is very good. So we just take the holy name, take the holy name, take the holy name. There's no other way, there's no other way, there's no other way. Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go,